Hi, I'm Sleepless Skies, welcome to the channel. In this video I'm going to be taking you through my latest release, Something Real, a collaboration with my good friends Hex Solstice, released on Colorize. In this video we're going to be looking at a few of the key elements that make this track what it is. In particular, we'll focus on how I process the vocals for this track. We're also going to be looking at some really nice sound design techniques using Ableton warp modes that can add some real interest and ear candy to your tracks. And also we'll look at the way in which I use some of the mid-range elements to give the illusion of deeper, warmer bass. So let's jump into the door and have a look at the project. Okay, so here we are in the project file for Something Real. Let's have a quick look at what we've got here. So you'll see first of all that we've got two tracks here actually. This is the main mix, the extended mix, and then this is the radio edit. And I tend to do my radio edit in the same project as the main extended mix, because when I do a radio edit, if I have to go back at any point and make a few changes to the mix balance or to any automation or anything, it can then be carried over very easily into the radio edit. I don't have to open up a whole new project to start fiddling with that as well. So it's something I learned to do. Nice little tip to speed up your workflow. Put your radio edit after your extended mix in the same project file. Okay, so anyone who's familiar with the way I set up projects will be kind of familiar with this structure. I've got this kind of overarching group, which I call mix bus. I then go into a whole bunch of different sections here. So I've got some pianos, all my vocals are here, lead instruments, then this group called harmonics. And this is basically all of the kind of background stuff that basically provides the kind of context of the track, the kind of almost like the canvas that the rest of the track is written into. It's all the kind of background instruments, strings and pads and all that kind of stuff. Then in here, I've got my drums, and I split that into grooves and transitions. So this is all the stuff that makes the groove happen, and then this is all the transitions and effects and everything else. And then I've got my low end or kick and bass bus. So I've got my kick drum here and my basses here, and there's a few different basses. So this project structure, by the way, this template, I will leave a link to in the comments of this video. You can get it yourself and use it in your own. I've got it all set up with Ableton stock plugins only, so you can just get it and use the structure straight away. So let's jump in. There's a few things that I want to actually highlight in the track. So let's just have a quick listen. Just jump in here. There's a bit of an intro, but you can get the idea. Beautiful voice from Hex and Solstice, Joshy and Jamie, such wonderful singers. I'll just move forward a little bit, give you a sense of some of the different sections. You can hear the little lead synth coming in now. The whole idea behind this track was it was supposed to be kind of airy and bright, but also quite soft. Yeah, so then you get the idea, kind of drums come in, lots of ad-libs. There's this huge breakdown. CPU struggling a bit.
Sometimes love can hit you from the other side.
We'll go into like the space we get in the vocal and how we do that.
Opposite like magnets, it pulls us in again. You lift me up, you calm me down.
Yeah, so anyway, then, you know, as you'd expect, it gets back into the main body of the track. There's some counter melodies coming in at the end here. So that's that. So the first thing to say is this is written in a kind of an interesting key, which is A Dorian. So it's written in Dorian mode, which is a kind of a version of a minor key, but has a kind of a semitone difference. So I was actually doing this as a bit of a kind of experiment to see what it was like to write in A Dorian. And you can see that because in all of the pads and stuff, I've got this like scale plugin on it, and I stuck it all into A Dorian mode. So you can do that if you want to just kind of mess around with different chord structures and things like that. So it just means that this is on here, and you can also see that the whole track is for most of it in A Dorian as well. So okay, let's jump in to first of all looking. I really want to look at the vocals first, because I think a track like this, the vocals are really the bit that requires so much effort, and you can see if I open this up just how much processing is going into getting these vocals to work. You know, there's just so much automation and we'll go into all the different processes. Let's start with the main vocals. I'm going to just highlight a section here just so we can hear it. And
never been so far from perfect. Think that you're the same.
So what we've got going here is we've got this main dry.
Never been so far from perfect.
Then we've got this.
Never been so far from perfect.
Which is another recording of it. Then you've got this. Which is actually one of those vocal samples dropped an octave. It doesn't sound good on its own, but it just adds, if you listen to the context of it in with the other vocals, it just adds
never been so far
a little bit of depth to the vocal. It's quite a nice idea, just putting it in at a lower register. And then if I go to this part here,
opposite like magnet, pulls us in again.
So there's some harmonies and things. And these boys do so much nice harmony.
Whatever's on your mind will overcome.
So there's so many little harmonies going on the whole time. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful voices to work with. So how did I process these vocals to get it sounding like that, right? So let's start from the bottom up. So the first thing I did was that on each element, you can see in each of the different vocal elements here are the main vocal elements, there's a bit of EQing, a delay, which I'm using for effect. So that delay isn't on the whole time. It's just coming in and out when I need to add a little bit of an effect here and there. And then also a limiter. And the reason I'm using a limiter on these vocals to begin with is
never been so far
just occasionally you can see it spiking over the top.
Think that you're the same.
So it's just catching initially catching a few peaks. Now, the thing with vocals is these are a whole bunch of vocals all recorded. They're, it's not an instrument, it's not a synth, it's not electronic, it's a human being. And so their voices are sometimes high, sometimes low. Like my voice now, it's like got volume in some places, got different tone in some places. So one of the things you're doing as a producer when you're mixing vocals is just trying to get some kind of consistency so you can work with it without stuff sticking out too much at different times. So I just put a bit of a limiter just on all of these just to catch peaks that's then going into the main vocal processing. So having got them all kind of at roughly the same level, so I know that they're not going to kind of be out of sync too much in terms of levels, I'm then going to put the whole lot in this processing chain and process it all together. So let's talk through what's in this processing chain. So the first thing we've got here is a compressor. And this compressor is set to a really high ratio, really quick attack. And basically the job of this So the first thing we've got here is a compressor, and this compressor is set with a really high ratio, really quick attack, auto release. And the idea behind this compressor is to catch any peaks and start to level like I said, we're always leveling off the vocals.
You're the same,
So you can see it's catching all these little peaks here that are coming through.
the same.
So it's balancing things out. Then we've got the LA2A. This is Wave's version of the LA2A.
Never been so far from perfect.
So you can see just getting little bits of additional compression. It's just leveling. The LA2A is famous for its effects on vocals, kind of smooths them out, makes them sound really rich and nice. So we've got that on there. Then we've got an EQ, which is just bringing out some of the higher elements here.
Never been so far from perfect. Think that you're the same.
Okay. Then I've got an addition of Nectar. So what Nectar's doing is we've got a gate on just to stop any noise getting through. This is basically a microphone noise gate, so it's just to stop.
Never been so far from perfect. Think that
So it just stops there any background noise that might have been picked up in the recording. I've got another EQ, which is just doing a little bit of work down in this. It's cutting off the bottom, getting a little bit of that low mid out, and then lifting the shelf. That shelf's at 4K, just starting to lift the top of the vocals. But these vocals, they were a little bit sort of meaty in the low mid range and a little bit lacking in the top range. So I was using the EQ and so on to kind of pull that out. And then we've got de-esser on as well.
Think that you're the same.
And no pitch correction. We didn't have that on. Didn't use any pitch correction on this, by the way. There's no melodyne, there's no pitch correction. This is just the boys singing. Like, it's amazing talents. Then I've got this on, which is doing actually quite a lot of work, Soothe. So what I'm doing with Soothe is I'm trying to start to, like I said, carve out some of that low mid-range. If you listen to it without it.
Never been so far from perfect. Think that you're the same.
See how that cleans it up straight away? Now, this is quite important in the context of the track because the vocals and the lead synth were kind of trying to occupy similar spaces. So by carving some of this out, I've been able to create some space for the bottom ends of the lead synth to kind of occupy that space. Then we've got our spatial processing here, our spatial effects. So if we listen to them dry.
Never been so far from perfect.
So then we add the echo.
Never been so far.
This is an echo preset called A Little Bit Tipsy, and it's really weird. It sounds very bizarre, but actually when you add it to vocals, it just really makes them sound richer.
Never been so far from perfect. Think that
so there's a nice sense of space there without it being like big, long delays and stuff. And then when we add the reverb in, which is
so far
Valhalla and a preset called AT Lead Detail, 3.6 second decay, but pre-delay, 60 millisecond pre-delay. So that's giving us some lovely space. You'll see on both of these, there's a compressor added with side chaining, and I'm side chaining the vocal to itself. So I've put the vocals are the trigger for this. So you can see as it comes through, these effects are getting out of the way whilst the vocals singing and then kind of coming in afterwards. And that way the main vocal isn't getting drowned in reverb and echo, which would just make it sound muddy and unclear. Then I've got a little bit of an EQ straight afterwards to kind of just tame some of the effects we've added. I've got a multi-band compressor on here just to completely compress the bottom end. I don't really want anything under 120k coming through, so I've cut it there. I've also compressed it, and I'm bringing a little bit of compression in the mid-range as well, just to make sure that we keep that under control. And then finally limiting, which is really only catching peaks. It's not doing a whole. It's not a lot of limiting. You want to retain dynamic range, but look, this just means it won't go over a certain point, so it'll stay nicely sat within the mix of the track. And then my final thing is a bit of sidechain compression just to get it to sit with the kick drum, just to kind of pump it a bit when the kick drum's playing, which it isn't at the moment, so that's why it's not really doing anything. So that is the process that goes into all the vocals. You can recreate that vocal chain. Almost all of it was stock. The only thing you can't really do is things like, I guess, yeah, you actually can use a gate in stock. You can use, there's a couple of de-esser presets, I think, for multiband dynamics. So you can do most of this actually with stock. Things like the LA2A, just use a compressor with a really gentle attack. You can actually get the LA2A's compression settings from the internet. You can just Google it. So most of that you could do with stock. I've just used a few third parties because I like them. Okay. Oh yes, Soothe may be the only thing you couldn't do. That's true, actually. This is super helpful, this plugin, and highly recommend it. It's very hard to recreate this any other way. Okay. So that's our vocals. I want to show you a couple of other things with vocals that we've done as well. So what I did here was this one called Air Main. So you'll hear, if I play the whole vocals, all the vocals together with this, I'm just going to bring this in here. So then if I...
Never been so far from perfect. Think that you're the same.
You can hear this hissing, and it gives the sense of the vocals being kind of almost like an instrument. It's a really weird effect. So this is what I've done here is I've created a copy of the main vocal lead, and then I've cut everything out of it using EQ8. I have added a lot of fresh air. A lot of fresh air. This is a very strong plugin, so 55% is high. And then I've stuck the whole thing into Valhalla Supermassive in my favorite Supermassive preset, Cygnus X1, which is, it's really great. And then high mix, high amounts, but you can see like big, huge delay, 271 milliseconds. So it's massive, right? Supermassive. EQ it again, sidechain it to itself so that it's not coming in while the vocal's playing, and then limiting to stop it from getting out of hand anywhere. And you can see it's actually so gentle, it's not really triggering any of these. I think they're just there to be on the safe side. But you can hear now that it comes in and just creates this lovely kind of background airiness. Very cool thing to do. All right then. So that's the vocals. The next thing I wanted to show you was some of these kind of really cool ear candy bits that I did, which I think this stuff, like this little bits of ear candy, this is what gives tracks kind of like standout appeal. This is what, you know, we call it candy for a reason because we keep coming back to it. So these are some of these things. Oh, nice. And this thing. So how I made these, it's really kind of cool. It's using a lot of if I start this here, it's using a lot of resampling and some of the spatial effects and warping effects that are built into Ableton. So if I create a new, let's just create a new audio track here. I've just switched off this utility so that the volume automation isn't affecting what we record. I'm going to record this first, right? So if I got this here, so that's what I'm going to record. Let's just set that there, hit that to resample, arm it, and then so, all right, good. Okay, so I've got this sample now. Let's make sure it's looped. And this is what, and so I've got this. Now, first thing I want to do is add some rhythm to it. So I'm going to use this beats setting here in the warp effects. See how cool? That's actually quite cool already, right? And we've barely done anything to it. Then, so now I want to re-record this with that baked into it, because I'm going to do more to it. I'm going to keep, it's like I'm kind of continuously like sampling down, creating something weirder and weirder each time. So let's re-record this, resample this one. Okay, I don't want to take that bit at the start. Okay, right. So now we've got this. Now, if I go to textures, I can start to mess with grain size and flux, right? So it's just starting to introduce some kind of weird elements to it. Could even stretch it a bit. I think for the purpose of this, I might just keep it the way it is. Could pitch it up. Oh yeah, that's cool. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to re-record again. So we're going to go back to here. Insert another audio track. You can't automate these little warping effects, so we're going to have to keep resampling. So I'm going to put that in there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open this up here, arm this, and I'm just recording this in. Okay, so now I've got this new loop here, and I could just introduce a little bit more of the rhythm to it again, and then we can do other things with this, right? So I think this is a nice effects chain I created, which has an EQ, this gate with a gate trigger. So this is sidechained to this thing here called gate trigger, which is just, you know, a little percussion instrument playing a little rhythm. And so that gate trigger is now going to let the signal through when the gate trigger plays. Then an auto pan, a filter, and a bit of delay. And if I just let me drag and drop that onto here and add this and see what it sounds like. So now we've got a sample that comes from the track that's been heavily edited to create something new and weird and spacey and different, but still feels like it's part of this piece of music. So, you know, if I just silence these, because I can play it to you in context of the track. There it is there. That's the actual original one. And, you know, you could do other things with this, like... creating these weird textures and sounds, like just stretching it and playing with the textures. This is a really cool thing. I'd really advise having a play around with textures and these different modes here and seeing what you can create and what you can come up with. The other thing that I played around with here, which is cool, I had another version of it, and I added this chorus and this filter delay. Filter delay is another really cool one. If we listen to that in context. So that's octave down. And then I've automated this. That's another thing you can do, is like automating all of these different filters. This creates a lot of interest. Like, it feels like the track's always moving and evolving, you know? So you're just constantly changing the way that the filter delay works. It's quite a subtle effect. It's really nice. And again, you can be doing that on here with different settings like the filter or the delay. Lots of things to try. It's really cool. Loads of potential, and all done using stock. You know, there's nothing that requires any special crazy effects units or anything like that. Can all done using stock. This LFO pad, by the way, always love using Diva. This is just created using the initialize setting, initialize pad in Diva, and I've just added an LFO to it and then automated the rate. So it gets quicker at the end of each chord. Dead simple, but really nice effect. And also there's a bit of automation on the filter there too. All right. So the last thing I want to really dive into here in this video is just looking at the way that the bass works, because I always think, you know, low end is so important in these tracks. So this is the low end here. So what you can notice here is that the low end, let's bring us to a part of the track with it, is made up of all these different sections, right? So we've got this sub. So this is from a Bound to Divide preset called BS sub. It's just a pretty simple sine wave, nice depth to it. We've just got some EQ and limiting there to keep it in check. Then we've got this, which is real nice. That's got a lot going on. This is, again, a Bound to Divide preset called Simples, but I have added quite a lot to it. So I've introduced some more top end to it. So extra, it's got actually 3 oscillators playing together. And then just basically creating this kind of harmonic thing you can hear. So nice spread of harmonics there for this mid-range one. But you can do this. These are all just simple saw waves, really, in Diva, with a bit of noise added as well to create that kind of hiss on the top. It's all pretty simple stuff. And then we've got this, which is this kind of slightly whiny one, but it sounds really nice in the context of the bass line. And it's almost like a little melody line. Now, what you'll notice there, this is called Sunrise, another one off that same Visions Bound to Divide pack. It's a good pack, that one. So what you'll notice is that this fifth bass, I've got some processing on all of these. So on the top bass, I've got effect rack. This is Sound Toys stuff. Decapitator, a bit of tremolator to give it some rhythm. So there you've got that whoa, 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 whoa. And that LFO rhythm is kind of going through a lot of these instruments in this track, gives the whole thing a sense of movement. You've also got microshift, so the top end of it is widened slightly. Listen to the difference that makes. It spreads the whole thing. It's a really nice plug-in microshift for getting a bit of, but it's only doing it to the top, so it's not spreading the bottom end of the bass. And then on this one, we've got the same again, decapitator and tremolator, and this time I've used wider to get the width. And this is very mono compatible, so it's a good idea to use that as well. Now, what I want to show you though is what's really interesting is if I take my span plugin and show you where all this stuff is happening. This bass line is really starting, and this one here as well. So both of these are occupying a lot of mid-range. You know, we've got, they kind of really kick off at about 150. So that's still very much in the kind of low, the kind of upper bass, low mids range. But then we've got quite a lot of stuff going on, the 600, 800, 1K, even up as far as 4K. So there's a lot happening in the bass line that's actually happening in the mids, even, and it's what it's doing is it's giving this kind of illusion of really big bass. Just sounds much bigger. And then when we add to that some pads that are doing a similar job, you can see how we've really filled that bass line out and just given that, it's not an illusion. I mean, there really is a lot of bass there, but it's this sense that the bass line is much bigger than it is because it's actually filling out a lot of the mid-range. One of the things we want to be careful of here is that we're making space for everything. So I've got here a little bit of a dip in the EQ curve where I know the vocals are sitting, a lot of the vocal weight is. And I've also got this neutron 4 on, which is basically just getting the bass out of the way when there's a lot of lead playing. So if I was to play from here, you can see it's making a few just gentle reductions just in these parts here. So just EQ, you can see you can do most of it with EQ and just like getting it, like using things like multiband dynamics, just getting it out of the way that way. That's done a good enough job. Sometimes people are interested in the kick. The kick on this is this AT. It's from Audio Tent. It's a sample pack from Audio Tent, which actually was a lot of Kick 2 presets, where I've just used the sample that came with it, and this is called Solo F Sharp. Really nice, clean. Made it really short and stabby, 150 milliseconds long. And then just a bit of processing here. Bit of compression and a little bit of drum bus just to add a little bit of, so take a little bit at the bottom of it and just control it a little bit more, because it's it's nice sounding kick but quite boomy on the bottom end, so I want to take some of that off. So I've just used a bit of that, but very gentle. You can see drum bus is only at 7.7%. It's really gentle. And then on the drums themselves, I've got this drum effect chain that I usually use, which is the drum bus processing. I've got a bit of decapitator and devil lock, really gently just blending that in to give that kind of so you can see it adds a lot of like presence, a little bit of roar on that as well, just lifts it, and then a bit of fresh air as well. Not a lot, 3%, but it's powerful. And then compression limiting. So that's all I'm going to take you through. That's all we've really got time for. I hope that was helpful. I hope there's some good ideas in there that will help you in your next production. Give me a shout if you want to know about anything else in particular. Please like and subscribe to the channel. It helps me immensely. I'm really trying to grow this channel now, trying to get a bigger following, bigger audience. So like the video, subscribe, helps me out immensely. And I will see you in the next video. Cheers, bye.